you have to do everything well, and then you have to find the mix that works the best for your brand. And that's going to change over time too. So early on, you may have to be spending typically more on performance because like the dollars really got to work for you. I would just say the one pitfall is people kind of ignore brand early on because of that. And they kind of get lost in the meta D2C loophole. And that's kind of like, that's like a drug. Like you're only as good as your last hit, as your last click.
Yeah.
As soon as you stop paying that money, if it's all DR advertising based, you don't mean anything to anybody and your brand can't live on its own. Hey dudes, I'm Sean Riley, the Chief Executive Dude of Dude Wipes, and you're on Behind the Brand with Brian Elliott.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the show. Sean, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
We're in an undisclosed secret location here in Southern California, San Diego-ish. You're out here on vacation. So happy to have you in from Chicago area.
Yeah, for sure, man. Soaking up these Cali vibes down here and enjoying SoCal right now. It's beautiful.
And you got the guns out. I love it. I usually ask
when in Rome, you know.
Yes. In fact, maybe no. I usually ask my guests, how did you get this job?
So, you know, like any entrepreneur knows, you got to kind of create that first job. So way I got this job was wanting to be an entrepreneur, create a product, essentially create, you know, a life and a job for myself. So I used to tinker around with little things on the side while I was working my 9 to 5, like web design or helping people make Facebook pages for a local Wrigley rooftop, like stuff like that, just messing around, kind of had that entrepreneur's bug and was looking for an idea to like really chase seriously. And it was right after college. I was living with all my buddies in a big Animal House apartment. And I was responsible for buying some of the goods one week. So I went to Sam's Club, got your toilet paper, paper towels, and I picked up a bunch of baby wipes too and brought them to the house, stocked the bathrooms with them. And you got to remember, these are guys eating tons of burritos, drinking tons of beers, like you're partying after college. So you're taking a lot of bathroom breaks often. And the baby wipes just came in handy. Everyone got hooked on them right away. So that was kind of when like the light bulb moment went off, like the product moment.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, why are guys using baby wipes and loving them? Why isn't there anything else in the market? Why isn't there something flushable? We weren't even supposed to be flushing these things, you know, no cool branding. So all of that sort of stuff. And then it was like, okay, well, let's go build something to get that job, to get out of your 9 to 5. You got to build a product or a business. And so Dude Wipes was that brand idea meant to kind of represent the guys in the apartment, the guys in the couch. And that's what kind of went after and built Dude Wipes as a brand, as a product. And that took a long time, you know, it took a couple years probably to actually have a job, right? So
yeah, let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
I have so much to ask you.
I crammed a lot in there on you.
The first question is, so from idea to execution, about how long was that? And I ask that with context because, you know, a lot of people have talked about it. It's not an original idea, but I've experienced it myself. It's like I have a million great ideas, I think.
Right.
But I have not executed on them. And I have several little inventions too that I've been thinking about, but I haven't executed. And so I'm not winning because I haven't executed. So how long between, you noticed something in the market, a demand, and there was a need, what was the timeline?
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about like that day one realization, like, oh shoot, everyone's using these baby wipes, starting to mess around with like a brand and a logo and a name, probably close to 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So like then you're starting to mess around with building the brand, or at least I was. That's where I was really infatuated first.
Yeah.
And then finding a manufacturer takes a while, and then putting in that order, finalizing that order. Now it takes another long chunk of time to get that delivered. So, you know, from idea to Dude Wipes showing up, you know, in the alley, in the big truck, probably 2.5 years or something like that. And I always say that's when the magic starts. Like you got to get to that product being there, hell or high water, because everything else is just idea phase.
Still lots of questions. Did you do prototypes? And when I say you guys, I'm assuming you had some help, but was it just you?
No. So it was me and my co-founder buddies from guys I had known since grade school, high school, and we kind of started it together out of the apartment. So
how many of you?
There was 4 of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was it clear what people were good at right out of the gate? Because sometimes it's difficult, right, to start a company with friends.
For sure.
Because not everyone actually has the skills or the chops to do what they need to do.
Yeah. Yes, it was. And that was because when you're starting a company, you got to look for people to partner with who have complementary skills. So we were at least smart enough to realize that, you needed the entrepreneurial spirit, which you're just going to really soon realize not all your buddies have that. That's okay. They don't want to start a company. They don't want to do those things. So you look for the people that have that drive. And then it's, okay, how can we line up people who have different skills instead of duplicating? So if you look at it that way out the gate, you can save yourself, a lot of trouble where it's like, oh, we got, 2 creative guys, or we got 2 sales guys. Like try and break it up a little bit with the different mindsets.
Was it kind of like, did you ever have one of those Beatles moments? I hear the Beatles lore, and you remember the 5th Beatle, Pete, who never made the roster, but like,
no, I've never heard that.
Well, so there's this guy named Pete. He was the drummer before Ringo.
Yeah.
And Pete just didn't work out.
Yeah.
Probably a great drummer, but it's just like he wasn't a fit, or maybe he was sort of lukewarm. And so he got cut.
Right.
And can you imagine being that guy? It's like, oh, I was in the Beatles. I was the original Beatle, but like, they gave me the boot, and the rest is history.
Yeah. I mean, I think that goes back to like when you're talking to people, like I was talking to a lot of my friends, and you can tell that they don't really have that spirit, or they're, that driven to take the entrepreneurial plunge. So that's where people kind of weed themselves out early on. Like, Mark Zuckerberg has the story of people he invited to the dorm at Harvard who didn't show up, Yeah. And so it can be kind of that simple. I'm sure that Beatle was a similar way, he just wasn't that into it. Guys, I don't want to jam,
But did you have to make any tough choices? Like have some hard conversations like, listen, buddy, listen, dude.
No, it was just too casual for that. I was just a guy in an apartment talking about launching ass wipes, and it was it wasn't anything official or organized. So it was just kind of moving as you go along and seeing like who was actually into it, and then kind of being like, okay, let's go, pen to paper, those sort of things.
And did you get pushback? Like, so you were in college,
after college.
Okay. So this is post college, but
yeah.
Did you have any mentors, or like, I'm thinking about like college professors you went back to get input, or your parents, and you're like, I got this great idea, guys. And then did you get pushback, or like anyone telling you this is a terrible idea, or?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you're trying to get input from anybody and everybody. So whether it's just a random family member, or a friend, or like an old professor, you're just sending it around, and some people didn't get it. Some people did. I would say for the most part, people didn't really get it. And that's kind of typical of like a little more original ideas that kind of break through. Like they seem weird to people at first. So I would say that was most of the feedback.
They said it was weird. Like, I mean, because I would have said, well, it already exists in the market, Sean. Why like put a hat on a hat?
Right.
Like, so you already have the baby wipes.
Yeah.
Right. Like wipes exist.
Yeah.
And so it's a hat on a hat, right? It's like, well, dude wipes, it's just the same thing, but just with dude in front of it.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people didn't think dudes would use wipes, which we had this example of our apartment. Hey, we're dudes, we're using baby wipes, and so they're not really built for the job. You weren't supposed to flush them. They're obviously for babies, we're guys. So like we had that consumer proof point, like, hey, we are consumers of these things. They don't exist. So to us, having that insight, it felt very simple. Like, well, of course this will work. We're looking for this. We built it for ourselves. But other people don't see it that way. And then so they're like, dudes will never use wipes, a lot of that.
Yeah. They were wrong.
For sure. Yeah, and I mean that's just, you kind of, we didn't get too hung up on that, and I think that's something to like make sure people understand is just execute. Like if it's something you like, other people are going to like it too. So listen to some feedback that comes in to make sure you're honing the right thing. But if it's just, you know, total like negative feedback, or like, you know, if it doesn't really have any merit to it, just ignore it. If it's somebody actually being like, well, I would make this wipe, you know, this size, or like I'd make it like this. Okay, those are interesting things. People are trying to like craft it for you. But if it's something that you like and you're using, just go ahead and execute.
Mm-hmm. You talked about starting a brand right out of the gate. How did you go about doing that? And maybe while you're thinking about that question, this show is called Behind the Brand. We talk all about brands and branding, how to build a brand. In fact, this is where people come to learn from experts who've done it, how to build their brand, whether that's their personal brand or a consumer product or service. So let's start there. How do you define a brand? What is a brand? And then what is the Dude Wipes brand?
Yeah. I think it would define a brand now. You have to mean something to someone, not everything to everyone. Mm-hmm. So that's where I think a lot of people get tripped up, is they try and go too broad and make something that appeals to everybody. And now you don't have a brand that's really emotionally resonating with people. You kind of just have a product. So a brand has got to like be punchy, make you emotionally respond. And typically to do that, you have to be talking to a group of people and not everybody. And so, you know, the niches really are where the riches are. Like, you know, you find those niches, you make product for those people, and you build it on some sort of like, hey, this is aspirational, this is funny, this is futuristic. You know, you got to bring something into there that people feel. So that's kind of how I would, you know, define a brand.
Yeah, I love that. And that tracks with what all of the experts who I've heard up to this point. We've done 500, you know, interviews with some of the smartest people on the planet, and they've all said something very similar. So, you know, a brand is not your logo.
Right.
A brand is not your advertising campaign, your slogan, your tagline.
Nope.
You know, even the Just Do It famous from Nike, that's not their brand, right?
Right.
A brand is distinct. A brand is a shorthand for what you stand for. A brand is like, you know, what you would expect. So if you go to see a James Bond 007 movie, you're going to know or go there with the expectation that you're going to see probably a martini shaken, not stirred. You're going to see a really great car.
Yeah.
Beautiful people.
Nice tuxedos.
Probably some violence at some point, right? So you kind of already know what the James Bond 007 brand is.
Right.
Even if we don't even know the script for the next movie, we already kind of know it inherently.
Yes.
And another way that one of my mentors, both Marty Neumeier, who's sort of like one of the godfathers of brand, and Seth Godin talked about. Seth is like, you know, imagine the, you know, if Nike built a hotel, what would the Nike hotel look like or feel like, smell like? What kind of amenities would it have? And if you can do that, if it's distinctive enough, then you know you probably have a brand. On the other hand, if Hyatt built a tennis shoe, a running shoe, it's harder to imagine what that is.
True. Yeah, yeah.
And although Hyatt has a brand, or Marriott, these brands are more designed to be ubiquitous. Like their strategy is like, we want a hotel in every corner, in every part of the world that you're going to be. We want to be convenient. Maybe it's about price. So it's less about the brand and it's more about being ubiquitous. But, you know, Nike is so distinct, or Dude Wipes is so distinct, or Volvo or 007, you know, you can conjure up these images of the brand. So it becomes the shorthand. So
for sure.
What is the Dude Wipes brand?
Yeah, I mean, the Dude Wipes brand, and when you kind of talk about categories too, it gets interesting. Like a lot of brands, I mean, they start in one category and they kind of mean something to a category. So category is part of a brand too, especially in the beginning. And we entrenched ourselves in this toilet paper, poop humor category.
Yeah.
From the branding side, we were going to be fun and use humor. And from the actual product side, we were going to be a better way to wipe your butt than toilet paper. So that is where early on we started realizing that was so powerful, because no one had ever went into this, $12 billion space in the US and had any fun with it.
Yeah.
No one had ever even said the word butt before.
Right.
No one had decided to really talk about what people are doing with this product. And then no one had ever marketed, hey, there's a better way if you use a wet wipe instead of a dry piece of toilet paper to go to the bathroom. So we were doing these interesting things with the category and with the brand. But at the end of the day, when you're using that Volvo comparison, Volvo means safety to people, Dude Wipes means fun. So we want to bring you fun, whether it's VR social media, VR advertising, VR packaging. We want to bring that fun to you and get you clean with our product is what we're delivering, but it should be fun. So that's definitely one thing we're all about. That's our one word that we've always kind of wrapped it around, and we can say things that the other guys can't. So it's a nice competitive advantage too. I would say, make sure your brand is saying something differently than your competitors. Because if you try and go enter, a crowded space and you're trying to talk the same as the other guys in the space, you're going to get lost. So come and talk the way that no one's ever talked to people in your area before.
Yeah, I love that. And again, it makes me think of those convenient hotels. They're convenient. The problem is it's also sort by price, because they're all the same.
Right.
Hilton, Marriott, Hyatt, whatever. It's just sort by price. And if it's around me, I'm not loyal to the brand. I'm loyal to the price, or they're loyal to the convenience, right? And that's another thing I think that's interesting about brand is people are willing to jump through hoops or wait in line or pay a premium for a brand.
Yeah.
And that's why there's also a huge market for generics, because sometimes brand doesn't matter if you're a commodity product. If you have no personality, that's the downside. That's what you risk in jumping into that sea of other voices is, you're competing on price, and it's often a race to the bottom. And the problem is you might win.
Right.
Not great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to ask me what I think the Dude Wipes brand is?
Yeah, I'd love to hear it, because that's the most important part. It's not what you say it is, it's what they say it is. Yes. So it's what people say your brand is. I can say whatever I want on this podcast about Dude Wipes, but that doesn't matter. What matters is what people think.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think probably if you ask 100 people, you get 100 different answers, and that's okay too. So my impression of your brand is that it's irreverent, it is fun, but it also points out the obvious, that you don't have to take yourself so seriously. Not that, you're shopping down an aisle it's just pretty sterile and kind of boring. I pick up some paper towels and I go down that aisle.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And on the end cap, they might have, whatever advertised, but it's when I see your brand, it kind of makes me smile, and it reminds me that, I don't have to be so serious about everything. So it is,
which is the definition of irreverence.
Yeah.
Don't take life too seriously. And
yeah.
so we have that word a lot in the background of our brand equity statements and stuff.
The other thing I'll say about you, I'll pay you a compliment, is you walk the talk, which I think is also a really important point if we're talking about your brand. You can't fake the funk, right? If you're not irreverent, or if you are a super serious person by nature, you can't try and be something you're not. Even if you want to create a brand like that, I think it's very difficult.
Yeah. There's going to be a disconnect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we even say that with company culture too. Of course, the company's not going to be exactly like our Instagram or something, where it's all out there, this fun poop humor. But if it's not a fun place to work at, if people aren't, enjoying themselves and not taking life too seriously in our meetings that are about supply chain and finance and operations and stuff, it's not going to work. And, so we're looking for those type of people with our culture. And we're looking to operate that way too. And that's one cool thing I think about having a a distinct consumer facing brand, it works internally too. And it's like, well, these are the kind of people we're looking for. Nike's looking for a certain type of person to work there.
Yeah.
And that becomes important, especially as a brand grows, that the inside, has some mirror to the outside.
I love that. Let's talk about packaging a little bit, design, because it matters. It catches my eye at retail. Give us some scope first. So like, what's the gross revenue ish? Like, what's the big picture? Like, how big a company are you guys now?
Yeah. Last year we did 150 million in retail sales.
Amazing.
So that was up like 50 million from the year before. Mm-hmm. So looking to keep blowing that out of the water this year. But that's 10 years after we got product, so mm-hmm. It was $100,000 the first year. So It's just kind of about, stacking up those wins and, growing the company organically, which we did. So you're just kind of doubling it each year. But as those numbers grow, then the doubles grow. And when you're doing something right in the right category, you get some nice escape velocity, sort of like us. So now we're like a black sheep of the toilet paper aisle that is there to stay. And those black packs are going to be there and you're going to recognize us in store. And once you have that scale, that becomes even more powerful. Like when you first walked into the store in the early Dude Wipes days, it was kind of like, oh, there's like one black pack there. What is that? That's cool. I'll try it, but it's still like, is this going to make it? Is this a legitimate player? And so part of the things we've done with packaging is now we have a wall of black and we have all different sorts of SKUs in the toilet paper aisle. And now we're sort of expected there. You do 150 million, the consumer is expecting to find you at Walmart and Target and Sam's Club and, all of those places. So you kind of become part of, what's expected. And a lot of that has to do with, the way you design it to stand out, especially in those early days.
Yeah, I want to stay on design for a second, but I also want to ask, are there any retail locations you don't want to be? So sometimes, when you choose a path, knowing what you don't want to do or who you don't want to be is also important in building your brand, right? So are there any retail locations that you would say no to if they wanted to carry it? Like out here in Southern California, have you heard of Erewhon?
Yeah.
Okay, so Erewhon, do you know the story?
I don't know the story behind it.
It's fascinating. In a nutshell, Erewhon was started by this cute little couple who lived, I think, in the Boston area. They moved out to California in the 60s and basically started Mother's Market or Whole Foods, a version of that, like fresh organic vegetables, all natural, super healthy. And they grew it into, a little business in LA. And right around 2010, I think, an entrepreneur bought it. And they started to grow it, put capital into it. And then Hailey Bieber walked in and enjoyed one of their smoothies. And someone took a picture of her drinking it and went crazy. I mean, so crazy that became like their staple item. They're selling these Hailey Bieber fruit smoothies.
Yeah.
And they sell about 40,000 of them a month.
Wow.
40,000 a month to the tune of about, I think it's about $1 million a month in just smoothies.
Right.
And so anyway, it's grown into this thing and it's sort of become this super high end. By the way, the smoothie, you want to take a guess how much it costs?
I feel like I've seen the memes like it's $18 or something.
Yeah, it's like $18.
Yeah.
But they say it's worth every penny.
Hey.
I mean, you can...
When in California, get an $18 smoothie, you know what I mean?
or you can, find out what the recipe is, make it at home for a couple of bucks. But no, I'm sure it's delicious. But it's brilliant marketing. But that store, I mean, you can go buy a pineapple that's imported from like Paraguay and, it costs like $82 and like everything in that store is expensive. So would you put Dude Wipes in a store like that?
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. I mean, for us, it's about where toilet paper is sold. Like we would like to be available for the customers because we have customers of all backgrounds, right? Like we sell to the Walmart rural folks, we sell to the urban Target folks. So, the brand can reach a lot of different people.
Yeah.
But definitely we've said no to people, especially early on when you're growing. Like, you really should say no to a lot of people. You should just be focusing on your early movers, where the product's working. As a company grows, then you start to, you can say yes to a couple more things, pursue distribution, but we're still pretty focused on customers, retailers that are moving a lot of Dude Wipes. We'd like to just move more there,
right?
Increase the presence, increase the velocity.
It's efficient rather than having to ship.
Yeah. We don't chase doors, we chase productivity in the doors that we're in. And so, yeah, like drug channel, we've stayed out of for a while because it's just like, in a pinch, you buy your toilet paper there. And yeah, we'll eventually move into that channel, but it's not a problem that we need right now when there's plenty of other growth in more productive places.
Yeah, you don't need to be in 7-Elevens, maybe.
Yeah. And it's like, those are things where you might start to get into with like a little travel pack. And so it's like making sure you're also selling the right thing at the right place.
Yeah.
And like, we just launched in Hudson News, and it's a small little travel pack, and that's not going to move the needle on sales at the end of the day, but the company our size. But what it is going to do is, Brian's at the airport, he's got to take a shit, he doesn't have anything on him, he sees the Dude Wipes, goes in there, goes to the bathroom. So like, some things are to get the brand out there, which would be like an Erewhon's. Like, hey, I'd love to have, Hailey Bieber pick up a pack of Dude Wipes so she's at Erewhon's. Yeah. Erewhon's is not a place that's going to move the needle, but as a lot of people like to get in there, it's like a cultural, branding play too.
Yeah, I like it. How about international? You guys think about international? Does it translate as a brand cross the borders?
I think Dude would. Now, you wouldn't know that until you were in certain markets, but I like just taking the cool American brand and just selling that in other places than trying to go in other places and make like the, Mate Wipes or something over in England. Like, I'd like to just bring Dude Wipes there.
Yeah.
And
that's what I'm saying. It's like, does the Dude Wipes brand, is there demand for it overseas yet? Are you thinking about international?
We're thinking about it, but again, so much growth here domestically to focus on. We're very don't drown in opportunity guys. That's something Mark Cuban sort of beat into our head from the early days. After we did a deal on Shark Tank, and you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to sell here, sell there. And he's like, hey guys, you just got into 300 targets. Why don't you go kill it in those 300 targets? Like, all your time, your capital, your energy is going to be more productive doing that. Mm-hmm. And we look at this market in the US where we believe we can 10x our company of where it is today. And so it's just like, hey, do we need those set of regulations and operations and advertising and all of that right now? And maybe not. But we're always looking for like when the time is right without doing it too soon, which I think a lot of people do international sales too soon. And I can remember being a young entrepreneur doing a couple $1 million and be like, oh, we got a call from some guy in Dubai and he wants to buy Dude Wipes. And you're like all excited about it. And it's the last thing you should be excited about. Like, you haven't even built a scalable operation in the most consumable place in the world. You cannot care about anything else. So really warn early on, folks, say no to every single international thing, because they're going to come. They're going to come into your inbox that comes across your desk. Make sure that the scale is right, the time is right, and we're not even there yet.
I heard you talk, off camera about some of these product iterations or, new extensions that you're thinking of. And again, you got that advice from Mark Cuban, stay the course, hyper focus. Can you tell that story again?
Yeah. So we were probably doing 5 million a year, 8 million a year or something of Dude Wipes. And the business was growing, it was doing its thing. And we kind of thought, well, maybe this can also be like a bigger men's grooming play. So we launched deodorants and soaps and stuff like that. Dude soap,
Dude
deodorant.
Put them out there in the market?
We designed them, R&D'd them, commercialized them, we put them up online. And it wasn't like we spent a ton of money on it. We did spend time on it and just kind of we're taking our focus away from what was working. And then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, Dude Wipe sales exploded because you couldn't get any toilet paper. Now there's a great toilet paper shortage and everyone wanted Dude Wipes from us. And all of a sudden, all our time and effort had to go there. And that really created a lot more awareness for the product, and the sales just continued to grow. And we said, why, I'm fighting one war with big toilet paper, multi-billion-dollar companies. A small brand has never done it before in the history of the US. Mm-hmm. And it was, you have a little bit of an ego sometimes as a brand owner. Oh, I should go fight another war with Axe and Old Spice and Procter and Gamble and Unilever. Like, you don't have the resources and the energy to do that properly. And also, more importantly, the consumer most likely doesn't want that from you. They want to buy from category kings who stay in their lanes, and they'd rather buy soap from guys like Dr. Squatch, who have innovated soap, and they're real good at selling soap. And that's what Dr. Squatch means to people, is like a nice natural soap for guys. Does dude need to compete over there? Our answer was no, once we looked at it and made those mistakes. So they were good mistakes, though, to make early on, really galvanized what we're doing. And obviously that advice doesn't work for everybody. So I say really understand where you are and where you can go. And that's where we still think we have so much room to grow, that then we ground ourselves into, well, then why would we do that? Why would we do that?
Yeah. I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. So what was the signal that it was the wrong move? Was it like lack of sales? Was it lackluster? Was it like it took your focus off your main bread and butter? Like what? How did you know that was wrong? Because I'm just thinking about it intuitively. It's like, well, Brian, okay, if we release, deodorant and, some soaps, yes, Dr. Squatch is maybe, the category leader with guys in our market, but it's just going to take time, and
right.
We just need to, even if we're number 2, so many puns, then we can still be just fine at number 2. Look at Ford versus Toyota, or Toyota versus Tesla, or whatever that market slot is. Sometimes it's fine to be number 3 in the market. You do just fine. So what were the signals saying, nah, we should shuttle this?
Well, I mean, we've had one value since day one of our company: if you ain't first, you're last.
Okay.
So we don't.
Bobby.
Yeah, the Ricky Bobby. So what Dude Wipes did was it was a first mover, unique thing. The first people to ever make these kind of wipes and make them for men. And now we're number 1 in the category in general. But we don't want to enter things where we can't be number 1. And so that was an oversight of one of our values. That we even did it. But it helped to kind of go back to that value. And I would say what reinforced it is just go be a category historian and tell me how many times line extending a brand works. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty rare. Red Bull tried to make a cola. Mm-hmm. Didn't work. They said, let's stick to energy drinks. Mm-hmm. Coke tried to make an energy drink. Didn't work. Said, let's stick to Coca-Cola. Mm-hmm. And so brands really typically mean, one thing in a category. And if you can own a number 1 position, which we're in a unique position to do, all your time and energy should go into that. So it was not that these soaps and deodorants, I mean, we sold out of them. We sold through them. The reviews were decent. It was just so small. It started to look like a fool's errand. Mm-hmm. That was going to be a really bad idea to chase down over the next 5 to 10 years while we're trying to chase the big dream and the big goal. So it really became about like, be crystal clear on your strategy. And yeah, those businesses, they would still be around today. Like, let's be honest, if we decided to keep them alive and advertise them and produce them, I just think in a small way that would hurt potentially our brand equity and our focus and our energy and our capital of everything else we're trying to do.
I wonder, like, what other like war stories can you tell me? Like, I've heard there's a lot of like little wars going on with brands trying to trip up the other brand. Has there been any of that? I know, retail space, it's defined already. You've got a certain amount of space.
Yeah.
Certain people get the end cap and certain people do not.
Right.
If you pay for it, you can get it. But like shelf space, even, top shelf, middle area, lower shelf, that's all a thing.
Yep.
Have you run into like having to do battles with some of the giants that are out there? Like, how have you're sort of the underdog here. How have you navigated that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you don't necessarily hear all of the details, because they're kind of behind closed doors and you're dealing, big B2B relationships and stuff. I will say it's more prevalent as you start to get into like smaller grocery chains and places that are a little bit more cowboyish. And all of a sudden, especially after COVID, sometimes it'd be like, well, somebody's guaranteeing a huge toilet paper supply and this chain is scared because they ran out of toilet paper, and because they're doing that, all the real estate is locked up. They've essentially said, we'll guarantee all this supply, but we want all this real estate. And all of a sudden you're getting a call, we're not going to carry Dude Wipes anymore. And like, wasn't really about the performance. The Dude Wipes were performing just fine. It was like, well, for the real estate, somebody else is kind of like outbid you on it, essentially. Yeah, monopolized it.
Yeah.
So yeah, things like that happen. At the end of the day, the consumer wins. Like, if consumers want your product and they're buying it elsewhere, somebody's going to have to reverse that decision. And so no one can box you out permanently. If what you're doing is working for the consumer, the retailers will have to give at some point. But early on, when brands are small and before they've kind of hit like that escape velocity, they can box you out a little bit, and they can still box you out to this day. But that's where the internet is king. Go sell product on the internet. There's no gatekeepers.
Yeah. Do you have a DTC channel?
A little bit, but we're more Amazon guys.
Okay.
Which is similar to direct to consumer, but just like control your own destiny. That's where we made our first million. That's where we built the business. Like you said, it wasn't even gatekeepers back then. It was no one would pick up our phone call. So what do you do when you had this dream of selling Dude Wipes in toilet paper aisles and no one will pick up your phone? You go launch on Amazon. You build out your presence there. You drive customers there. You move units there. Then all of a sudden you get to show the retailer, hey, look what I'm doing on what I'll call the free market. You know what I mean? Like, look what I'm doing on something that doesn't require a shelf reset or, anything like that. And I have great sales, great reviews, great product. You should give me a shot too.
Yeah. Talk about your marketing, because I've seen you guys do some pretty interesting activations. Here in Southern California, we just had two big sort of concert. We had Coachella and we had Stagecoach. And, tons of people come in to hear the music. And
yeah.
I can imagine you guys being in a place like that. I think I saw you guys do something, I don't know if it was NASCAR or if it was race car related, but you sponsored.
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Talk about some of your marketing activation, how you're getting like beyond the traditional. Talk to me about what you're doing with marketing and advertising.
Yeah. Mainly marketing has been for us since early on a lot about like just viral hacking. So we have a lot of cool stories where we're on social media, very active, talking to people, and something happens in the news. So, there was like a UFC fighter and she shit herself in the ring. So all of the sudden that's, of course, trending, right? Everything like that trends. It's a big story. Yeah, yeah. And then so we're in her DMs. We're sending her Dude Wipes. She's posting, hey, Dude Wipes sent me this after my unfortunate incident. And then that goes viral and the news picks it up. And so we love doing those things. We've done them time and time again where we can get involved with culture. We can make light of a situation, that may otherwise be embarrassing. We just had one with a Boston, marathon runner who went viral for the same sort of thing. And we were involved with that conversation. So we love all of that stuff because, we had to grow up fighting a bear with a stick. We didn't have a marketing budget. And it was, how do we get attention? How do we get the name out there? And so we learned all of these tricks and trades, and then we never abandoned them.
Yeah, guerrilla style. Yeah.
Just guerrilla style, yeah. But then you get to do a lot of fun stuff too once you start making profit, and you can reinvest in marketing programs. And that's where we've done a lot to get involved with sports, because guys watch sports. And if we can be relevant in there and part of those communities, we can get the brand out there and build more true fans than some other, broad media advertising. So NASCAR dudes, it's just your middle of the country, good American dudes. They get dirty. They love Dude Wipes. They love us, seeing us support the community. So we've been involved with there for years. We've been involved with MMA for a long time. Again, dudes, wrestling, grimy, they get Dude Wipes,
And what kind of, specifically, like what kind of sponsorships are you buying? Are you like buying like banners on the actual octagon? Are you putting a logo on the driver?
Yeah. I mean, our most famous UFC one was we put a logo on a fighter's ass. Mm-hmm. And that really went crazy because it was early on. People hadn't heard of us. It was so funny to see a product for your ass advertised on someone's ass.
Yeah.
We almost didn't realize how funny it was when we did it
Who's the fighter?
It was Tyron Woodley.
Okay.
He's the guy who's fought Jake Paul in a couple recent boxing matches.
Can you tell us about how much that sponsorship cost?
That cost us $10,000.
That's it?
Back in 2014.
Okay. I mean, that's a steal.
Yeah, it was a steal. And it was because his logo sponsor on his butt backed out. And it DM'd us a couple weeks before the fight. So it was actually his idea.
Yeah.
And we could barely afford it. And we were just like, this just seems so right. We got to go do it.
Yeah.
But then we sponsored his ass in the Jake Paul YouTube fights, the 2 that he had with him, and got tons of exposure and tons of buzz again.
Yeah. Did that get more expensive?
8-9 years later, it got, about 10 times more expensive.
About 10 times?
But that was all worth it too, because those were huge cultural moments, huge fights. And again, we were on the same guy's butt that we were several years ago.
Talk about that for a minute, because this is, again, I think, an important distinction or delineation between how you measure, performance marketing is really important, to be able to measure, okay, all right, we're going to make a product, we're going to advertise it, and then we're going to measure how many sales we got from it. And that's our return on the investment, right? The net revenue, or, profit after all the operational costs. And then there's branding or brand building. And some of this is hard to measure with ROI traditionally. I mean, arguably you can't.
Right.
So how do you think about it? Because it ultimately has to come out of a bucket of, whether you call that a cost center or comes out of a P&L. How do you look at an opportunity like that with ROI branding versus like performance marketing, where it's very measurable?
Yeah, it's the age-old question. I think, everyone's always trying to figure it out. And what I would tell people is you got to do everything well. Unfortunately, there's not some silver bullet where, I do this really well. And in fact, if you don't do everything well, if you're just so focused on branding or so focused on performance, you're going to end up hurting yourself, because you're going to be stuck in one lane of the marketing mix, call it. And so, you have to be spending on performance marketing where you can track the return and understand how to acquire customers. Then you have to be spending on building the brand where it's not as trackable, and that'll actually make your performance work better, because it's like, I saw these guys at the UFC event. When my paid ad hits on Amazon, now they're more likely to convert on it. So sampling, getting your product in people's hands, experiential marketing, you have to do everything well, and then you have to find the mix that works the best for your brand. And that's going to change over time too. So early on, you may have to be spending typically more on performance, because the dollars really got to work for you. I would just say the one pitfall is people kind of ignore brand early on because of that. And they kind of get lost in the meta D2C loophole. And that's kind of that's like a drug. You're only as good as your last hit, as your last click.
Yeah.
As soon as you stop paying that money, if it's all DR advertising based, you don't mean anything to anybody, and your brand can't live on its own.
Yeah. Or one algorithm change, the ROAS.
Right.
If it's like you're used to getting 7x or 10x ROAS, and suddenly now it's 2x, 3x, it changes, right?
Right. Overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do it all well, find out what works, and then evolve it as your business grows. And and have fun with what you're doing, on the branding side, or have it mean something. It doesn't have to be fun, and just go build that. And that doesn't need to cost a lot of money in the beginning. That's where we kind of learned the guerrilla tricks. So you should always be a guerrilla building your brand, and don't use the excuse of, we just don't have the funds to build a brand, all that stuff. We never had the funds. We built a brand. So it's not about the resources. Be resourceful, be creative, find ways to get your brand out there.
I love that. As we're rounding third, coming home here, I also heard you talk about your philosophy on luck. Would you share that a little bit with us here? Because I thought it was profound.
Yeah, yeah.
You got asked the question, how much of your success is luck and how much of it is a skill. Talk about your philosophy on luck.
Yeah, I mean, my name may be Sean Patrick Riley, but I don't believe in leprechauns. I don't believe in luck either. And that's not some like ego thing or anything like that. It's really based in like a pure belief of the law of attraction, and that the universe is a random place and there's random things happening all the time, good, bad, ugly. And what you are doing is continuously tweaking your mindset and your actions towards the goals that you want. And things are going to go up and down all along the way. And I just think it's, if somebody asks you what luck had to do with it, well, what do you mean bad luck, good luck? Like bad things happen, good things happen. Like that, it's all that stuff. Like the harder I work, the luckier I got. Like don't throw luck out into the wind of, that's kind of like getting stuck in that idea phase. Like once you start executing, you start pursuing a goal and taking so much action over it, and you realize how slow it moves, attributing anything to luck is just going to kind of slow you down and take the magic out of it. Just attribute random things are going to happen. They're going to be good and bad. I'm going to work very hard towards these goals. I'm going to keep learning and tweaking and setting and visualizing and executing, and I'm going to be on a path, and maybe things will shoot up here and shoot down there. But I think luck it's a word that we made up as humans to account for just why did that happen, and yeah.
Well, I think it's smart because it also kind of diminishes our own awesomeness.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. Like I rubbed a genie bottle and like Dude Wipes came out, and then we got into Walmart, wow, look at this,
And the other thing that strikes me too, just from personal experience, is that success and failure, if there are those two, some will say sometimes you win, sometimes you learn.
Right.
But let's say you do say, I had a legitimate failure. Fine. I have experienced, and I'm sure you can relate too, both are temporary. Success is temporary. Failure is temporary. It's just like sort of this undulation of back and forth. Like sometimes things go well because they go well, certain factors. People make certain decisions that are beyond your control. But it doesn't make you any less awesome.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, what is good luck is because you had the success and you made some money during it, or like, what are you even defining it as? Like, that's not happiness or fulfillment either.
Yeah.
The money and all of that stuff is not really at the end of the day what's going to make you happy. So like a business growing to like luck just doesn't seem like right to me. And people always argue timing, but I'm like, you're doing things because you see something in the market. Like I'm a crypto guy and crypto's booming and I invest a bunch of money and I make a bunch of money and then I get out. Like that's not good timing. That's paying attention to what's going on, executing against it, and making some money or losing your ass. You know what I mean? But it's like people who are paying attention, they're designing what's happening. They're not just randomly falling into the .com burst,
Can I share a couple of these invention ideas I've got with you?
Yeah, shoot.
So since I have two ideas. So when I was in college, and it's sort of in the health and wellness category, so you can appreciate this. One of the problems I had, and I was thinking, I was in the shower one day, as one is, thinking about the world and inventions.
Shower ideas.
I get some of my best ideas in the shower and driving, and I noticed that it was really difficult to wash my back. And I had one of those like loofah things on a stick, and I was like, man, this is not great. Like I can get some coverage, but I can get the front proper clean.
Yeah.
No worries there. Like, everything gets clean on the front, the back, wherever I can reach.
What's going on back there?
But like to get my back or, properly, get the whole back is difficult. And then, so I started looking around the market, and there's like a thing on a rope, and you can kind of, rope the sponge back there and kind of get a little bit more coverage, but it's still awkward, not comfortable. So I dreamed up this idea based on, have you ever seen like a grizzly bear in the wild, when it goes up to a tree and it kind of rubs its back on a tree? I thought that'd be awesome to have like a really great suction cup, like unit goes onto the shower wall. You can place it wherever, if you're taller, you place it taller. If you're shorter, you place it shorter. and that unit kind of sticks in there, and then you have a separate kind of lock-in piece, like, and it's like the either the loofah or the sponge. You can lather that thing up, and then you go. And I thought I'd call it the bareback scrubber.
There you go.
Sort of a play on words.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Instead of BEAR, I'd call it the BARE, bareback scrubber. But you sort of get that vision in your head. And so I have that product I've been just thinking about for all these years. And then
I like it.
You like it?
Yeah, yeah. It's unique, right? It's different, and that's what you need to kind of break through. And yeah, I could see people mounting that up and rubbing their backs on it for sure.
Yeah, and I sampled the idea. Like I auditioned it with a few different friends, and some of them were like, you know what, my grandma tells me like,
Yeah.
when you get older, it's you're not as flexible, or if you're super muscular, you can't even you don't have much flexibility. And then I started thinking, it'd be great to have like at my gym, but just like the attachment unit, and you bring in your own custom sponge or whatever, so that you could use your own personal one. It could lock in. Of course, you look at toothbrushes these days, and they have the electric toothbrush.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Have an iteration
A little
of this.
car wash style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is your
Focus on the one market though.
Yeah.
Don't go consumer and B2B.
Oh, okay.
That's something people like when you first have an idea. It's like, oh, I could sell it to the gyms, or I could sell, like, those are two separate different things.
Yeah.
And so those sales to businesses are really tough.
Yeah.
Bureaucratic stuff, politics. We don't want to spend the money. How does this thing work? We're selling to consumer it's online. This is great. So like I would sell it to the consumer online. And I think it's easily a multi-million-dollar online only business.
Yeah.
And that to me is what I tell people, that's your first goal. And then it's like, okay, because by the time you do that, you're going to iterate it, you're going to tweak it, it's going to do this, it's going to do that, you're going to change the logo, blah, 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 you're going to tweak the marketing. Okay, now I'm ready to talk to a retailer. Now I'm ready to take it to the next level. But also at the same time, I know plenty of people who have make a couple $1 million with a gadget on the internet, and they sit around and collect $500,000 cash a year off of it, off of no salaries or anything like that. And so, sometimes I think that helps people break down the idea to like a really small goal. Like when you said, like, how did you get this job or whatever? Like I only had to sell $1 million of dude wipes to have a job a year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so then it starts to be like, okay, well, that's the first goal. Like get a paycheck coming in and stuff like that. So yeah, always just like break it down real small and go after it.
Yeah, I could see it being an Amazon, fulfillment kind of product, but also a TikTok product.
Oh, for sure. TikTok
shop product.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sort of novel and interesting, but
Yeah.
I have a million of these ideas. But it sounds
Just
like
don't tell me you're going to license it out to somebody. That's the entrepreneur idea thing where I have this idea. Do you think anybody would buy it off of me and license it? No one's going to buy anything off of you that you haven't sold or done anything with. Like never going to happen. So if anybody's listening out there, no one is going to buy your licensed idea. People will buy your execution. People will buy something you've done and sales you've grown. People will buy $1 million Amazon business off of you. But no one will ever buy your licensed idea.
I mean, we were just sitting back, chopping it up, reminiscing about the good old days and all that. Tracking my roots, where I came from and where I'm going.